Hello, my name is Allison and welcome to my broadcast. So today I'm going to be talking about legal, ethical, and social issues that are found while integrating technology into the classroom. And I'm going to try to help you out and figure out some tips on how to overcome those obstacles. So I have a PowerPoint, or sorry, a Prezi that I'm going to share with you. So, as I said, I'm going to be talking about legal issues such as fair use in Creative Commons, ethical issues such as the digital divide, and social issues such as acceptable use policy and cyberbullying. So before I talk about fair use in Creative Commons, I have to give you a little background knowledge on what the legal issues are. So when you use different materials in the classroom, you have to follow what is called the copyright law. And the Copyright Act prevents the unauthorized copying of a work of authorship. So only the copying of the work is prohibited, and anyone is still able to copy the ideas contained within the work. So what that means is that if you are creating something or if you have created something and you don't want other people to take it from you or do the same things that you did, then you put a copyright on it. So they have to get your permission to either replicate it or to use your work in something. So there are a couple different things that are copyrighted, and most of them are things based on creativity and original work, such as paintings, films, music, drawings, etc. And some things that aren't protected are ideas and facts, because anyone can use them and not one person makes those up. So how do you get your work copyrighted? Copyright is secured automatically when the work is created. So as soon as you are finished something, then it is copyrighted, and then you have to go through the process of getting the copyright license. And also, if it's something that takes time to make, such as a movie script or a musical composition, then the date that you start making it will be the copyright date. Now that I've given you a little background knowledge, this is fair use, and fair use permits certain limited uses without permission from the author or owner. So depending on the circumstances, copying are considered fair for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, and teaching, and different types of research. There are four main factors considered for qualification of fair use. The first factor is the purpose and character of the use, including whether or not you're using it for commercial use or if it's for non-profit educational use. The second factor is the nature of the copyrighted work. So if it's fiction or musical composition, they're going to have the most protection, and it's going to be harder to get get permission to use those because they're the most creative. The amount and substantiality of the portion used in relation to the copyrighted work as a whole. So if you have less than 3%, then it's safely within fair use. If you have more, or if you have less than 10%, then it's really uncertain. It really depends on what parts of the work that you have used. And if you have over 10%, then that's basically copyright, and you're going to have to go back and redo what you've done so you're not doing anything illegally. The fourth final factor is the effect of the use upon the potential market for or value of the copyrighted work. So if you use some material that could reduce the creator's ability to profit from it, then this would be not fair, such as if you are illegally downloading music for instead of buying it on iTunes, then you are taking away that artist's money. So that would be unfair and that would be illegal. There are 5 different principles that the government has put into effect on media literacy and digital. So I'm just going to read the different 5, and then you can look at the little subnotes that I put. So the first one is employing copyrighted material in media literacy lessons. The second factor is employing copyrighted material in preparing curriculum materials. The third principle is sharing media literacy curriculum materials. The fourth principle is students' use of copyrighted materials in their own academic and creative work. And the final principle is developing audiences for student work. So to follow the legal guidelines for fair use, you have to really make sure that for all the materials you use, you credit the sources and you display the copyrighted notice and you provide the copyright ownership information, even if you aren't unsure whether it's copyrighted or not, because then the owner gets their, then the owner gets their ownership and they would most likely not want you to take it down due to illegally using it. Also, if a Creative Commons notice appears on the article, then you can use the work to share with your students, which I will talk about in a second. So a couple examples of material considered fair are small sections of a copyrighted work that are used when the teacher does not have enough time to seek permission. So if it's very last notice and you only use a portion of it, then it should be fine. Another one is copying a graphic or image to display in your lessons. So a big thing about fair use is if you're teaching it in the classroom face-to-face, then you should be fine and there should be no copywriting because you're using it to teach and you're not using it commercially to get something out of it. Another example is a chapter of a book to read in class with the children. And the fourth last example is just a random line from a poem that you found to give the children inspiration for whatever project they're doing. Going back to what I said earlier, Creative Commons. Creative Commons is a global nonprofit organization that enables sharing and reuse of creativity and knowledge throughout the provision of free legal tools. So they have free and simple to use copyright licenses that you are able to put on your work so you can put them up online in the public domain and anyone can use them, depending on which license you have. So the creators who want to make their work available to the public for limited kinds of uses while preserving their copyright should get the Creative Commons license, and others who want to reserve all of the rights for their work should go into getting a copyright instead of a Creative Commons license. So in Creative Commons, there are 6 different licenses offered. The first one is attribution, and that basically lets others distribute and edit your work, even commercially, as long as they give you credit for the original creation. The second license is attribution and -share alike. This also lets the user to edit your work even commercially as long as they credit you, and their license has to be, or they have to make their creation a new license and it cannot be under the same license as yours. The third is attribution no derivatives, and this allows for redistribution, commercial and non-commercial, as long as it is passed along unchanged and in whole with credit to you. So in this license, you are able to pass it along and to demonstrate it to other people, but the user is not allowed to edit it in any way. The fourth license is attribution non-commercial, and this allows others to edit it, and although their new works must also acknowledge you and be non-commercial, they don't have to license their new edited work on the same terms. And the last one, I don't have one on there, is attribution non-commercial, no derivatives, and this is the most restrictive because it only allows others to donate the work and share them with others as long as they credit you, but they cannot change them in any way possible or use them commercially for their own use. So the benefits of Creative Commons instead of a copyright is that it provides global recognition. So if your work is on Creative Commons, then it's more likely that your work is going to be in the Google searches with the website. Another benefit is that the licenses are easy to choose. So It is very easy to go on to Creative Commons and to pick which license you would like because it gives you a clear definition of what each license has in store. The third is that it's easy to understand. Everything is very well explained, and even the users can look at the license and see the symbols on the different buttons to figure out which copyright license you have. And it also offers flexibility for users, so they're able to change their license if they need to, and they're able to edit the different works with the correct license. And there are also a lot of different benefits that you can look at on creativecommons.org if you would like to. So to find different materials on Creative Commons, there are a couple different ways. The first way is to go onto Creative Commons and to just search, hit the search Creative Commons at the top right corner, you'll see, and then it'll bring up this page. So you enter your keywords here. You can choose if you want to use it for commercial purposes and if you want to edit it. And then you can use these search browsers to find the one that you want. Another way is to go to Google, and you can go to advanced search, and then you will find a place called usage rights, and then you will go through all the different licenses that I just explained previously. Oops. So a couple tips for in the classroom for Creative Commons is to make sure that you provide all original source information, because you don't want the creator of the work to find what you have used and to accuse you of illegally using it. And another one is to protect the reputation of the authors and providers. So don't utilize someone else's work and then make or put them in a bad name or make a bad name for them, and respect what they've put and them as authors. Another is to show respect for the original work. That's also the same thing. Don't do anything with the work that would look bad for the author. Another is to support the enrichment of the public domain. So after you have used it, then if you have edited it, then you should get a license and also put it on Creative Commons so other people can go back and utilize and edit your work, so other people can bounce ideas off of each other and the public domain will be more widespread. The fifth one is to share knowledge. So use what they have on Creative Commons to go into the classroom and teach the students and show them different ideas that other people have around the world. And the last one is to maximize a work's potential. So if you're going to use a work on Creative Commons, then make sure that you're able to use it thoroughly and to be able to demonstrate what they're trying to say correctly. I'll go through all of these. And I also have a resource page that I have put for you, so you are able to go back on here later on, and here's more information for fair use and copyright. That is on YouTube, which is also a browser for Creative Commons. This is a video for students on teachertube.com that talks about fair use, and it uses different Disney characters and Disney movies to talk about it, so it's really fun for them. These are different websites that you're able to use through Creative Commons for legal images that you can add to your presentations, and YouTube also is a place for legal videos for presentations. Moving on, I'm going to be talking about a couple different ethical issues. Well, the main ethical issue is the digital divide. And the digital divide is the growing gap between the underprivileged members of society, like the poor, elderly, handicapped, and people living in rural areas that do not have access to computers or the internet, and the wealthy middle class and young Americans living in urban and suburban areas who have access. So factors attributing to the increasing digital divide is income, education, and race. Different facts are that households with higher levels of education are increasingly more likely to use computers and the internet. Also, households earning incomes over $75,000 are 20 times more likely to have home internet access than those at lowest income levels, and 10 times more likely to have a computer if living in the city or suburban area than in the rural area. Hispanic households are roughly half as likely to own a computer as white households, and schools with a higher percentage of minorities have fewer computers, whereas those with a lower percentage of minorities have a greater number of computers. So here is some statistics that I found from 2013, and it shows that the younger the householder is, the more likely they have a computer and are able to access the internet. So if they are between 15 and 34 years old, then 92.1% own a computer, while individuals who are 65 years or older, only 65.1% own a computer. And I'm going to be talking about the other different race and income later on. So the digital divide not only affects students' access to institutional resources, but it also affects their opportunities to use technology. So students who are low on income or who are minorities might not be able to enter college with insufficient technology backgrounds, and they also can get lower grades in school if they're not able to access the different types of materials that their teacher is asking them to do. So one of the divides is race, and in 2013, 85.4% of white households own computers, with 77.4% with internet access, while only 75.8% of Black households owned a computer, with a low of 61.3% with internet access. So this chart clearly shows the race divide. And Hispanic households, only 66.7% had internet access. So only 66.7% of Hispanic students in a classroom will be able to utilize the internet for their full use. Next is income. In 2013, 62.4% of households with an income of less than $25,000 owned a computer, with only 48.4% having internet access. And on the other side of the spectrum, households who had an income of greater than $150,000 owned a computer. 91% of them owned a computer, with 94.9% having internet access. So this is a very big divide. So this means that children who are in lower income households barely have any access to technology or even internet access. So it is very hard for them to get familiar with technology, especially in the classroom when their teachers are asking them to do online projects, or if they have to look something up for a research project. And this also will make them less knowledgeable in technology later on because they're less familiar with it. The last one is education. So 43.8% of households or householders who only had less than a high school education had internet access, while 90.1% of the households with a bachelor's degree or higher had internet access. So if you look right here, you will see the different charts, and the digital divide is increasing over the years. So in 2001, 75.3% had internet access with a bachelor's degree, but now, or in 2013, 90.1% of bachelor's degree holders had internet access. So even though the differences between the divides are shown, as I just showed you, all of the divides seem to be correlated with one another. So all of the factors leading to the digital divide must be improved in order for the digital divide to decrease as a whole. So for example, if you have a student that is in a household where their mother, father, or parent guardian has less than a high school education, then they will not be able to get, or their parents will not be able to get higher paying jobs and get lower paying jobs than the mothers and fathers who have a bachelor's degree or higher. So due to this, their income would be lower, so they will not be able to afford internet access or even a computer because they have to worry about food and where they're living and different expenses such as that. So, on the other hand, Black and Hispanic households are shown to be located in more rural areas than in urban areas due to the lack of income, and people living in urban areas are 50% more likely to have internet access than people who live in rural areas, and that's due to smaller telephone and cable providers, which simply cannot afford to provide the technology to their customers. Different ways to overcome the digital divide is to maximize student access to technology by allowing before and after hours in computer labs. So this means assigning different teachers who would like to help out in different computer labs in the classroom for before class or before school starts and after school starts. So the students are able to come early or stay later. So they're able to work on projects that they might have in the classroom, which will help them get better grades because they're able to use the internet. Another way to overcome the digital divide is to not use anything digital. Assign less homework that requires online access, and then print out online materials for students that don't have it if it's imperative for you to teach them. So if there's an article online that you want the students to look up, then you can print out the article before class, or you can print out or for the whole class, and then all of the students don't need to use the online, or you're able to print out the article for the specific students that don't have access to it. The last tip is to use computer labs for instruction and then go to the classroom for curriculum projects. So this way, different classes can go into the computer labs throughout the day, so the computer lab is not filled all day while you're teaching them different things. So you can go to the computer lab and do a lesson plan, and then you're able to go to the classroom and get the children to work with their peers to focus on different practice problems for what you taught them in the computer lab. The next issues I'm going to be talking about are two social issues that are involved with having technology into the classroom. The first issue is the acceptable use policy. So the acceptable use policy is an agreement between two or more parties to a computer network company expressing in writing their intent to adhere to certain standards of behavior with respect to the proper usage of specific hardware and software services. So this is basically saying that the school and the school board are making a policy that the students have to understand that they're not able to break different rules that they have about using the computer, such as going on to banned websites or bullying different kids and doing different things on the school computers that they're not supposed to be doing. So two dimensions of having the acceptable use policy is one, to protect the students. The students are going to be guarded from harmful content on the internet, and the students also aren't going to be able to use the internet to harm other students or interfere with the school's instructional program because their internet use will be monitored. Another dimension is to provide the students access to online if they don't have it and if they're part of the minorities in the digital divide. So this allows students to have access to the digital media that supports enhanced and engaged learning in the classroom. There are 5 different components of the AUS. The first component is the preamble, which is basically an introductory that clarifies the purpose and aims of the application and shows the students why they're going to, or what the purpose of reading the policy is. The second is the scope, which is the range and coverage of the policy. So it's going to basically be talking about the different policy rules overall. And then the third one, the policy, is going to accentuate requirements users must observe and go more into detail than what the scope talked about. So the policy also includes a list with prohibitive activities, so students aren't just assuming what they're not able to do, and they get clear definitions of what and what they cannot do. The fourth component is sanctions, and these set consequences of violating the policy. So sanctions, so in this area, the policy will have written out the different consequences of the different violations. So if you break a lot of the different policy rules, then you will have these set consequences, and it doesn't leave the students guessing and doesn't let the students try to test the policy out to see what will happen to them. The fifth component is the conclusion, and this basically repeats the rules and consequences with the overall topic of the policy and gives the students a summary of what they just read in case they were unclear about one part of the policy. So how to address the AUP in the classroom? Addressing the policy in the classroom can be difficult because the students aren't going to always be paying attention or going to be reading the policy in depthly because they don't fully understand the extent of how important that the policy is. So at first you should allow the readers to read over the policy, and then after they are finished, ask if any of them have any questions that they might have and provide them with definitions of unfamiliar words so they complete it to their full extent. The second is to play a game with them before they start using the computers. You can play a "Is that acceptable" game, which will provide the children to say different websites that they might go on or say different things that they might do on the computers, and it will provide the children examples of what is allowed and what is prohibited, and you can also talk about the different consequences that will go along with those violations. And the third is to thoroughly describe the consequences so they know what to expect and they don't try to test the limits of the policy and they aren't shocked by what will happen or what consequence they will get. The last topic is cyberbullying. Cyberbullying is bullying that takes place using electronic technology such as cell phones, computers, and tablets, as well as communication tools such as social media sites like Facebook and Twitter, text messages, chat websites like AIM, and websites. So as technology gets increasingly prevalent in our society, cyberbullying is shown to become more prevalent, and approximately 34% of students in our 34% of students experience cyberbullying in their lifetime in the report that I've listed below, and fewer than 1 in 5 cyberbullying incidents are reported. So if you go to this website, it's called cyberbullying.org. They have studies about cyberbullying, and this shows that, or on the y-axis is the percentage of students that got cyberbullied, and on the x-axis is the years and months that they have tested or surveyed the students. So in May of 2007, 18.8% of students were victimized by cyberbullying, and that has increased tremendously to 34% in 2015. So this shows that as technology gets more prevalent, the more that students or children will be cyberbullied. This is a stand-up to cyberbullying website or video that I highly recommend watching. It gives a little bit of warning signs and what to expect and how to handle it and where to go to report it. So different signs of cyberbullying are when children become withdrawn or shy, suddenly stop using the computer, skips or doesn't want to go to school, and becomes upset or angry when using a computer or a cell phone. They begin hurting themselves or self-harming, and they also lose interest in school. So if you want a full list of warning signs, I have put the link right here. So that is basically my presentation. These issues have become increasingly prevalent, as I said, as technology increasingly gets integrated into the classroom. And because some of these students don't have access to the internet at their home, they also don't know what to expect when they do have access to it. So it's very important to um, try to help these students understand the consequences of being rude and cyberbullying, and also the consequences of copywriting or plagiarism and using another creator's work online. I hope that you enjoyed this presentation and that you learned a lot. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me, or you are also able to look over the Prezi that I will have listed below. And thank you for watching.